Thanks, Stephanie and Luke. They're going to be back with us on March 12th. And they're also going to be performing at the Muse on April 1st. No April Fool's joke. They are going to be there on April 1st. And buy tickets. Buy tickets. So we could all use a little going up the mountain about now, I think. Yesterday, our house was smelling heavenly. And by heavenly, I mean sourdough bread was baking in the oven. My husband, Kevin, has been baking bread lately. He's really getting into his new role as house husband. But he made 8 loaves of sourdough bread yesterday, and oh, it smells so good. But I never knew what a process it was. I admit that I like the outcome of baking bread more than the work of baking bread. I've never baked bread. But it starts with a community. Baking bread, sourdough bread starts with a community. And you have to nurture that community. You have to give it sustenance. And then you wait and let it rise. And then once it's risen a little bit, then you add more ingredients. And you have to make the bread, which is different than baking the bread, I learned. And you have to add more ingredients and give it more nurturing, and then you have to knead it and fold it over on itself and flip it around and work it, and it gets all sticky. And then you put it in bowls and you let it rise. You wait and let it rise. And it's a several-day process. You have to have the right towels so they don't stick to the dough. And then baking day comes. Baking day comes and you put it in the oven and give it intense heat and watch it rise. And turn this golden brown, and then it cracks on the top, and you take it out of the oven, and it's this beautiful piece of bread where the inside is coming out of the top. The outer shell is cracked open to reveal the delicious inside. Show a picture of Kevin. This is one of his first loaves. Isn't it beautiful? It was scrumptious. What does this have to do with the talk? I'll get to that. I hope I got all the steps right. Maybe I missed, I don't know. Like I said, I like the outcome more than the process. On Monday, we started Season for Nonviolence, which is an international educational grassroots campaign to bring awareness dedicated to promoting nonviolence in a powerful way so we can heal and transform and empower our lives and our communities. It's 64 days. It starts January 30th and ends April 4th, and it's bookmarked by the anniversaries of the assassinations of Gandhi on January 30th and Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th. And it brings us an awareness of a different way to be, a different way to show up in the world. We're going to be sharing stories at future talks about all the goodness and the nonviolence has brought in communities and around the world, ways that change was brought about good. But today, I want to focus on where it all begins. Because it has to start within us first. It has to start within our consciousness, or we can't go out and be nonviolent in the world and promote an awareness of goodness and love. We can't do that unless we do it within our own consciousness. The Association for Global New Thought has lots of resources and lots of information about this Season for Nonviolence. And you can go to their website, it's agnt.org. But on this one page, it talks about how we need to practice and radiate conscious character. I loved that term, radiate conscious character. What does that mean to radiate conscious character? Well, to radiate means to bring forth from some center, from the inside out, to bring it out, to let it out of its box and spread it from within. Character is how each of us shows up. It's what we think, feel, and behave, how we behave and what we believe. And to have a conscious character, from a spiritual point of view anyway, means to stay aware of what thoughts and feelings and actions and beliefs we're sending forth, and to send them forth from this place of love, from this place of nonviolence, so we can practice radiating this conscious character during each of these 64 days of Season for Nonviolence. We're invited to do that. And if you go to the website, you can see each day has a different practice that you can do. Different practice to radiate conscious character, to choose nonviolent thoughts, to be more peaceful. It's a process, like baking bread. It's a process. It doesn't come naturally or easy to us. Thich Nhat Hanh says the essence of nonviolence is love. And Stephanie and Luke sung so beautifully about love this morning. Out of love and the willingness to act selflessly, strategies, tactics, and techniques for a nonviolent struggle arise naturally. Nonviolence is not a dogma, it's a process. And it's a constant process to train our minds. Train our minds to be in that place of peace, be still. Be still. Get to a contemplative place, even for just a little bit each day. Can make a big difference in how we show up, and how we react, and how we respond to the things that go on around us. We can radiate that conscious character. And it begins within us. So important for us to do that work. And it's not easy work. Until we choose to have nonviolent character, we can't radiate it. But the good news is that we have the capacity, that we are innately good. So many of us don't see that in ourselves. We don't see the goodness that's within us. And a lot of that is because we were trained or grew up with this idea of original sin. This idea that we have this mark on our souls, and it can be so damaging. And unfortunately, a lot of that came from traditional Christianity in the West. On Wednesday this week, we had an event with Matthew Fox. He was Zooming in, and we had some people here in the sanctuary and many more on Zoom. And he's a modern day prophet. He is amazing. But he reminded me of this idea of original sin and how it didn't come from the Bible. It's nowhere in the Bible that we have original sin. I shared this on the very first talk I gave here at Columbine in 2013. And it happened in 418 AD that there was a vote to take place. And the vote was, is man inherently good or inherently evil? Over 1,600 years ago, they're trying to decide this. Those on the evil side argued that Adam's fall from grace just marked us all as sinners. Pelagius was a British monk, and he believed that man was inherently good. Augustine said we were inherently bad, and we needed to be controlled. He brought over 200 supporters on big Trojan horses and gave the imperial government 80 huge stallions as a gift. Kind of like a bribe, maybe. How many of you have heard of Pelagius? Oh, a couple. How many have heard of Augustine? Guess who won? Most of the writings of Pelagius have been destroyed in the last 1,600 years. And for the past 1,600 years, us in the Western Christianity we've been taught that we're basically bad. But it's not true. We were born, Matthew Fox reminded me of this, that we are born with original blessing. We are born good. God, Spirit created us, and he saw it was good. And if we're created in the image and likeness of God, of Spirit, of the universe, of life, how can we be anything but good? And so it has to start with that knowing that we are good, that we are blessed, that there's no mark on our souls that says we're going to do bad, we're going to be bad, we are bad. It's just not true. But no wonder we need to practice being loving. Whatever is within comes out. And so we have to know what's in us. Is that goodness? Is that blessing? Is that sweetness? We have to acknowledge that first in order to be willing to choose nonviolence, in order to be willing to radiate a conscious character. We have to know that goodness within ourselves. And it's in each one of us. No matter what we've done in our lives, no matter what, it's there. It's there in you. It's there in me. We all have this. And with this ability to choose, to repent, as it says in the Bible so often, repent just means to come back to yourself. To choose a different way of being, to ground yourself, begins with us. Matthew Fox said that usually it's a crisis that helps us wake up to this. We go along in our patterns, we go along in our day-to-day lives, in our status quo, and then something happens. And we're shook to our core. And we need this reminder that we are basically good, that within us is the capacity to withstand any storm, to come from a place of nonviolence, an awareness of that rather than react with anger or hatred or any of that negativity. But we often don't see this goodness because of our own blinders. Matthew Fox says, everybody you see is walking around just radiating this light like the sun, but we don't see it because we're blind, or because maybe they're not radiating their own goodness. It's always an invitation for us to look for that conscious character that's within each one of us. Another modern day prophet, Matthew Fox, definitely a modern day prophet, but also Richard Rohr, another modern day prophet. And every morning I have this little book, it's a contemplative book that he wrote, and it has just these short little passages to read. The book is called Just This. And so I'll read that and then I meditate on it for a short time. And I love this one. I've been reading this one over and over just to get it sunk in there for me. Sometimes we need to do that, especially when things are going a little chaotic. But he says this: there are not sacred and profane things, places, and moments. There are only sacred and desecrated things, places, and moments. And we alone can desecrate them by our blindness and lack of reverence. It is one sacred universe, and we are all a part of it. It's difficult to see that sometimes, that we are a part of that we desecrate things with our thoughts, with our beliefs. Sometimes they're unconscious beliefs, so no blaming here. But we are the ones that do it, and so we have an opportunity to stop doing that, to come from a more loving place. I've been getting a lot of emails lately. And many of them are loving and supportive, and I'm beyond grateful for that. And there are some that are less than kind, let's say. And they're hurtful. And I've recognized some blindness in myself. I'm working on it. It's a process. As all of us, any of us who are affected by the events that our community has experienced in this last month. But it requires practice. When people, especially when people are attacking your character, it requires a certain level of conscious character, of coming from a place where we can recognize, we can read things, we can hear things, we can see things, and feel the hurt, but not hang on to that. That we can recognize that the person that sent it is hurting, is wounded, is coming from an unconscious character place. And so I've been given a wonderful opportunity, as my spiritual director often tells me, what a great opportunity to bring this forth and let it be up and, up for you and work on it. I'm like, yay. Yeah. But to practice blessing people that are hurting you, practice blessing them. Practice grounding yourself. I have to ground myself so that reality doesn't become my reality, or their words don't become my reality. And so each of us in our lifetimes have had opportunities like this where we can practice grounding ourselves, not getting caught up in the storm that's going on all around us, but staying centered and focused and knowing that we are innately good, we are innately blessed and loved. My spiritual direction program that I'm in, just started to get up again this week, and one of the classes is called Spirituality and the Human Condition. I'm like, oh wow, isn't this perfect right about now? I was sharing a little bit of what's been going on in my life with my classmates, and one of them got on and she just, Sue, I'm gonna just say this, I am tired of being a soldier for the Lord. And you must be too. Why do we have to be the ones to always take the high road? I just love her. But we have to be the ones that take the high road if we want to have a life that's worth living. If we want to be in a place of peace and a piece of love. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous quote that darkness does not drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hate does not drive out hate, only love can do that. And so if we want to get off that hamster wheel and stop that pattern that keeps spinning round and round in our lives, we have to take a different path. Didn't Jesus say, love those that persecute you? The tall order. But he's right. And if we look at it metaphysically, love those thoughts in our head that persecute us, because we all have them. And so we want to dispel those, not give them any power. Practicing nonviolence is like Kevin's bread making. It takes kneading, it takes folding, it takes nurturing, and then waiting and watching it rise. going up the mountain. It takes patience. It takes mindfulness. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But when it's baked and split open and you get to cut it and eat it, it's delicious. It's radiating its inner beauty. It's like that saying, when the heart is ready, if you put all the love on the outside of the heart, when the heart breaks open, it's ready to let it seep in. Let it seep in. Richard Rohr's daily meditation that I follow, and I share those with you quite a bit. His meditation theme this year is the prophetic path. That doesn't sound right, prophetic. I think that's right. Yeah, thank you. And he talks about it, how it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That the path includes the pain and the celebration. That life includes all of it. We can't have one without the other, unfortunately. We would like to. He talks about the prophets of the Hebrew Scriptures and how they knew this, that they were Jewish, but they would critique Judaism. The ancient mystics knew this. They all had challenges in their lives, and they sought a higher way in spite of them. Our setbacks are just stepping stones to that next level. There are lessons and blessings in everything if we're only open to it. And so we have this wonderful invitation to stay open, to stay aware. Not to look at the world as winning or losing. That's an ego's way of looking at the world. But to look at the world as healing. That's a loving mindset. That is healing. We've been watching The Chosen. There's a new episode coming out tonight, season 3. But a couple episodes ago, there was one where Jesus goes back to his hometown of Nazareth and does the reading of the scripture and the preaching. And the people from his hometown are all in the synagogue, or whatever they called it then. And they're not liking what he's hearing because it's not what they're used to. It's a different way of looking at the Bible, at the scriptures. And so they think it's heresy, and they want to run him out of town, and they push him out of the synagogue, and they're running him out of town, and he gets to a cliff, and he's at the edge of this cliff, and all these people are coming at him, and they're saying, push him, push him. And he just stands there, and he says, no, it's not my time. And he walks away from the cliff. It's a very powerful moment where he's standing in his power. I'm not going to give in to these patterns. I'm not going to give in to this reactivity. Metaphysically, people represent thoughts, so these thoughts in our head, we can take dominion over them. Stand in your power of what's right, that Christ self that we all have within us. That unity second principle, that we all have that spark of the divine. We all have that Christ consciousness when we can tap into it. It's there. And stand in your power. And don't give in to those repeated thoughts, especially when they're familiar, when it's your hometown and your locals and the people you grew up with. Metaphysically, it can mean those are your patterns. You're used to those kinds of thoughts. But it doesn't mean you have to stay with them. It doesn't mean they have to continue to be part of your consciousness. Radiate conscious character. not patterned character. That's the invitation. It takes practice. It takes process. It takes, like baking bread, waiting, giving it time. Not being urgent, which the ego demands, but time. And then we get to see the gifts. We get to experience the gifts and the lessons that are always in everything, because spirit is in everything. So this is your opportunity, your invitation. You probably have some gifts that have come through some challenges. Draw on those in hard times. And celebrate those when you become aware of them. You need to celebrate more. In the Association for Global New Thought's website, there every day, as I mentioned, there is a practice. Today is on education, the 7th day of a season for nonviolence, and is on education, which means to educate yourself on this. But tomorrow is on healing. And I love that one on healing, because we're healing here as a community. Healing invites us to see the gifts within the challenge, see the lessons. And once we become aware of those, we can radiate this conscious character. Namaste. Peace be with you.